Neas Damatius Corbulo.
That's what I call my dick. Okay, when we last left off, the crew of the Mallum Melodium had departed for the capital city of Cerulean on the world of Constantine to visit an auction being held by the Rear Admiral Gwendolyn for a valuable artifact known as the Lionheart Fragment. We rejoin the party as they trundled through the void down towards the planet's surface. Soon enough, your personalized Aquila lander, carrying you, captain and crew, starts to wobble and thump as it streaks through the atmosphere. Re-entry heating scoring the underside of the ship black as it makes its way through those thick layers of smog and atmosphere towards the planet's surface. And very soon after, looking through the thin, reinforced windows that line the interior of the vessel, you watch as a great, vast ocean of a brilliant, brilliant blue expands away beneath you, foaming and tormented by storms and naturally crashing waves in a tumult of water that seems to fight with itself. The waves never seeming to form one single direction, instead crashing into each other. Anything from little ripples to great squalls of 30 foot tall seem to ravage the waterline, right up to finally smoothing down on the coastline as you streak towards it. Here on the coastline, a strange grey matting seems to cover the surface of the water. And from that grey matting rises buildings, squat little houses floating on rafts, chained together, forming this carpet of houseboats that lead right up to the shore, whereupon, as soon as you can see stable land, great Gothic cathedral architecture reaches up, bursting from the ground in huge arches with domes and features and grotesques and great statues of the emperor littering its spires and arches. The cathedralic structures stretch away into a mountainous peak further inland, but you streak towards one of the many spurs that reach out like bolts of lightning into the land, surrounded by this webbing of housing. As you streak towards one single tower that stands just out over the mat. This tower seems to have been carved with a great edifice of a cephalopod-like creature. And where the creature's skull would be, it has two great eyes. Where in the creature's great head is a cathedral dome with two great glass eyes, through which you can see marble interiors and an assortment of noble finery. This must be the Rear Admiral's, let's say, mansion. As the vessel sweeps towards it, you can see a number of landing fanes jutting out from the strange column-like tentacles that reach down from the cephalopod-like structure, and ultimately, the captain directs you, Palladorius, towards the uppermost one that reaches out from the side of the creature, not far off from its strange stone bulk, saying, "Just set her down there, Palladorius."
Aye, aye, Lord Captain.
And so, I need you to give me a pilot spacecraft check, pilot voidcraft check at a plus 30, because it's very easy to land a ship.
Okay.
And now we all die.
Yep, immediately fails. Ship smashes into the side of the building. Hundreds are killed.
God, you guys have no faith in me.
For good reason.
He's gonna roll 100.
Well, we're waiting for the roll.
Catastrophic failure.
At least I'm not on that ship. Yeah, man.
Are you kidding me?
Is that with your plus 30? It is.
Yeah. Wow.
So-
a 90.
Polydorus,
Call it. What? Fucking call it.
you set the vessel down very harshly. You hear a solid crunch as the vessel makes landfall, and it bounces twice before it actually finally comes to a halt on its whirring turbojets. The captain shoots you a glance over his shoulder, a general gaze of, how the fuck did you manage that? Before shaking his head, facing forwards and saying, gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind, I'll lead the way out.
I always get the damn bad rolls.
Polydorus,
Yeah.
while you're there, open the door, would you? You know?
Flips a few switches that opens the hatches and doors to the
So the rear ramp slams down onto the deck with a solid thump as well. And you are all immediately accosted by the tainted air of the world. It
Well,
tastes foul, like
I'm not.
engine oil and diesel. It stinks to high heaven of foul, stagnant water.
And to think I polished my respirator for this.
And perhaps worst of all, the smog is thick enough to form its own mist. This strange, watery sensation leaves your skin feeling grimy as you come into contact with the foul air of the hive world. But at least the ocean looks nice.
You know, maybe the recycled air in the ship isn't so bad after all.
Let's get inside before my white shirt's not so white.
Well, given what I've heard about this planet, everything you wear will be blue before you leave it. But anyway, gentlemen, yes, let's get down there.
There's
Captain
just,
notes.
there's just a strange mechanical whining sounding from somewhere in Utobix's ropes from Dimension of Blue.
Doris is following behind everyone after he basically closes the hatches.
And I imagine you're leaving the arms column as instructed?
Yeah,
The sniper rifle.
Yeah, the sniper rifle is still in the ship.
Yeah. Okay. So the captain leads the way. Stepping out onto the platform, the air only grows worse as you finally get out of the buffeting interior of the ship and into the breeze, which is more of a gale at this point, flitting you with soft particles of smog and soot that leave little black pockmarks on your skin. The captain hurries himself forwards towards it and immediately is met at the door by a poor, unfortunate-looking gentleman serving. The man is dressed in great finery, marked with blue and various little Imperial Navy insignia, but you can tell he's been standing out here for hours, likely just for the last guest to arrive. And to that extent, he looks like he's been dusted with soot from the smog in the air, and he physically seems to have been soaked through by the mist. He's damp and sticky and gross and does not look too happy, despite the fact he immediately snaps on the fakest smile he possibly can and greets in High Gothic. So, can you guys speak High Gothic? Who can speak High Gothic here?
I can.
Okay.
I don't believe I can.
I am checking. Because I don't remember, to be honest.
Yeah, I only have Low Gothic and Rogue Trader.
I do not have High Gothic. I mean, I do not have High
I do have High Gothic.
You don't have it either, Decker? No. Wow, this party is going to be very fun.
No, I can speak it though, so I try to see what he's saying then.
Yes, if you want to give me a High Gothic.
Alright. Hold on.
I don't know. I think I might
any
give it a
modifiers?
side factor.
It's a plus 20 because it's a pretty diluted High Gothic given the capital world.
Okay, plus 3.
Oh, nope. But you clearly aren't from this capital, so the language is High Gothic to you is as much High Gothic to Low Gothic compared to your own knowledge of High Gothic. Yours is
Okay.
proper naval High Gothic, not this kind of butchered, truly upstanding capital city High Gothic.
Okay, good to know.
All the same, he chirps away to the Lord Captain, and the Lord Captain answers back in his own High Gothic before he nods, and the gentleman rushes to the side and opens the doors for you. He ushers you all in, and you follow him into a marble-lined decompression chamber, as it were.
He could have at least washed his uniform. Invite us in, eh?
I really can't blame the lad. By the looks of things, he's been waiting for arrival. It's us who should be apologising for being late.
He's just a posh boy.
He's the servant of a posh boy. Let's get that much right.
Which is even worse.
Or is it better?
No, it's worse.
The doors close behind you, and after a few seconds, the air begins to recycle. And that sooty, foul smell is immediately replaced by a, perhaps, it depends on your point of view, either a worse smell or a better smell. The rich, perfumed air of the highborn. It is sweetened, specifically. Chemical agents added to it to give the air itself its own flavour. Everything has a strange violet aroma and a violet taste, as if the very air was sugary and sweet. And almost immediately, you are met by the gaggle and murmur of the populated people. And a few moments later, the vessel's doors slide open. And you find yourselves in amongst the party. Here, the finest and the best are amongst themselves. Quite a few people are present, though not many for what you'd know a party to be, Decker. Your idea of a party is a throng of people, maybe, well, I'd imagine this for Verana and Palladorius as well. It's a throng of people, maybe 100 or so. Here you can spy maybe 8 or 9 people of interest, and the rest seem to mostly be servants and aides.
So many souls.
The chamber is large and vaulted, and at one end you can see a bright set of windows which appear to be the cephalopod's eye. You imagine this hall is probably mirrored on the other side, either for other functions or other events. You can't quite tell, with a number of sliding doors and access between its marbled walls. Columns line it with beautiful carpets covering the floor, and a very thin layer of micro-lighting. A neon tubing that sits just below a thin sliver of plating on the floor, surrounding marble discs, which seems to be marking out some abstract form of, well, you really can't tell. You think it's planets? Maybe ships at war. The obvious scene isn't quite clear, and it really doesn't make a whole deal of sense. The place is mostly naturally lit by light streaming through the window, though candelabras and, of course, the floor neons provide some light. And the pompous, pampered, and rich are straddling themselves around statues and various places to consort with the other high and mighty. Most importantly, at one side, you see what catches your eye most of all. Standing upon 2 servitors' bent back, grasping arms, is a huge mechanical case. It seems to be plated with at least 3 layers of diamantine glass and securely reinforced. Each servitor's legs have been replaced with a spider-like configuration of mechanical, enabling them to function as one. Hardwired, clearly through wires that string along the bottom and into the back of each servitor's skull to allow them to simply function as a moving mount for the fragments which sit inside a small, tattered remains of a small pile of scrolls, each held on beautiful hand-carved wooden spools. Also scattered around the chamber are a number of pedestals, glass cases enclosing other treasures, and at the far end of the room there is an absolute consortium of food. It is mouth-watering to see for many of you, and, well, what you see on offer is... you can barely restrain yourselves from heading on over immediately to... and raises his hand to get your collective attention. It's at this point, Romulus, that you yourself are distracted from your conversation with Baron Vanderkampf. As the captain almost scarily had predicted back on the ship, you've been hearing about how, well, he, while touring the prison, once witnessed the other prisoners attempting to escape, but unfortunately ended up hanging themselves on their own rope halfway out of the pit. He found it quite entertaining, and you've probably forced a laugh alongside it, as the governor explains the grisly scene in, well, perhaps too much disturbing detail. But fortunately, he is distracted, as are you, by the arrivals at the door, which is almost immediately met by the captain striding towards you with his aides at his heels, opening his arms to say, to exclaim his greeting of, "My boy, and Baron Vanderkampf. How lovely it is to see you both."
Our Lord Captain, it's fantastic to see you.
Glad I could finally get to meet you in person. Yeah, look, I'll give you that you're taller than I expected. Anyway, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to introduce ourselves. Why don't you introduce yourselves to my crew here? They're going to be escorting you for the rest of this party. We'll get acquainted when we get back on the ship, shan't we? I imagine you have much to tell me about your own task, but for now, I'm wanting to see how you work.
Yes, Lord Captain. I shall introduce myself to your crew. I am Celerius von Romulus, and I will be serving as the first officer on board the ship. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Hello, young man. It's been a long time since I saw you. I walk over and proffer my hand.
I squint at you for a few moments just to see if I can remember before accepting the hand.
We only met briefly when you was a young man. I wouldn't expect you to remember, but I'm pleased to see you again.
Ah, then it's good to meet you again once more.
It's Decker. Decker Armstrong.
Good to meet you again, Decker.
So, sorry, yeah, go on, Romulus.
And the others? Sorry, I haven't caught all of your names.
I'm Verana. I am the ship's astropath, though I doubt your father's mentioned me at all.
No, but it's good to meet you, Verana. And the tech priest?
Utopexicano, agency and prime of the Mallum Melodium, at your service.
It's good to meet you, tech priest. And finally, what would your name be?
Aljoris walks up, and on the first helmsman of the great ship that your father commands, Palladorus Vex at your service.
Good to meet you, Palladorus.
Well, isn't this all lovely? Now, you gentlemen, get yourselves acquainted. You have much to do at today's party. As for myself, well, Baron Vanderkampf. Been too long. Yes, it has been quite a while, hasn't it, Solarius? I see you're here chasing that elusive warrant. No, I've seen what warrants of trade turn men into. Scoundrels and reavers, one and all. Ah, yes, but I am your favourite scoundrel and reaver, no? And it's at this point that you guys have the opportunity now to depart from the captain, as he takes up conversation with the Baron, to, instead, begin your own endeavours amongst the party.
Well, firstly, I'm going to wave over a servant to pass me a glass of something. Can't be going about a party without a glass in my hand.
Oh, no, of course not. Almost immediately, one of the men serving rushes over in attendance, and he presents himself before you, or presents himself, Jesus. He presents a small tray, silver tray, on which stands a number of fluted glasses, filled with a soft, faintly blue, which makes you immediately think of the ocean, which immediately brings back the awful taste from outside in the back of your mouth, but nonetheless a soft blue liquid. But you notice most importantly that sitting in front of the tray, sitting at the front of the tray, is a small dish filled with pearls, and what appears to be a set of calipers next to them. The servant immediately approaches as you wave him over and says, for the good gentleman, Mavi pearl wine. Actually, he speaks in High Gothic, so you don't understand him initially. He yips away in High Gothic to you immediately.
Can I try to understand, translate?
Yes, you definitely can.
All right, one moment.
Like I said, it's a +20.
All right. I'm retranslating for basically everybody here.
Or you can pray that the people can speak Low Gothic as well as High Gothic.
I also speak High Gothic.
Ah, perfect. Do you want to attempt it as well, Romulus?
I can attempt it as well.
Actually, no, you've already been at the party, so... Yeah, so for the rest of the evening, Varana, servants and Romulus, you won't worry about them either. So he introduces it with as he speaks to Decker, and the rest of you understand him. For the good gentleman, sir, some of our local delicacy, Mavi pearl wine. Would you prefer that I crack the pearl, or would you like to do it yourself?
Please, be my guest.
I'm imagining have the others translated for you then. I was explaining that's what he says to Varana and Romulus.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's Marve pearl wine, and he's asking whether he wants you to crack the pearl or if you wish him to do it.
Yes, and I'll address him in Low Gothic and say, be my guest.
Right away, sir. He answers back in Low Gothic, impressively, Decker. Though still with a trill of High Gothic. It's obvious these people can speak Low Gothic. They're servants after all.
Yeah.
So he places his hand over and reaches for both the calipers and one of the pearls. He then takes it, and placing the pearl between them, much like a nutcracker, he holds it over one of the wine glasses and crushes the pearl into just a fine powder between them. And as that fine powder sprinkles into the wine, it begins to fizz furiously, at which point he plucks it from the silver tray and hands it to you in a single flute.
Now, do you sip it or gulp it?
It is at the gentleman's discretion. Could I interest any more of your party in a drink?
I step to the side and busy myself with drinking the thing.
It seems definitely like a sip one because of the fact it's just frothing aggressively. It's like a champagne if the champagne never
Stop fizzing.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll take one as well if you don't.
Yeah.
Do you crack your own pearls or do you let him?
I'll crack my
Let
own.
him do it.
I'll give it a crack.
Here we are cracking pearls.
I'm not going to make you do a strength check to crack the pearl there, as tempting as it may be. But yes, those who do partake in the pearl wine have them a fizzing blue drink. The pearl wine is incredibly sweet. It's practically a pop, if alcoholic. And because it's fizzing so intensely, it's like a very sweet prosecco, let's say. But
pretentious.
Exactly. It is.
Paladorius definitely gets one as well.
The fact a single pearl is sacrificed to every single glass of it is, oh god, you can just taste the high class.
So,
And it tastes like degeneracy. There are other drinks milling about. Sorry, carry on.
what is our mission here? Well, I
Your
presume
father,
proceed.
Well,
your father mentioned we had 3 contacts here that we needed to befriend.
well, let's not call it a mission, eh? Let's say that we need to mill around and make friends. We have 3 particular friends we want to make, and unfortunately it may require high Gothic speakers. So I say we split up into small groups. Romulus, would you like to come with me?
I mean, would you not prefer to have Varana with you
Well,
for a greater chance of succeeding?
I don't know. I think I want to catch up, if that's alright.
We'll go all together then.
I don't think that we should all ambush our potential friends. What do you think?
It would probably be
It
best if we split it up. All of us going in at once might draw some attention.
Indeed.
Well, if it's all the same, whom of us can speak High Gothic? I know. Is it just I and Varana?
I believe that I'm confident enough in my own ability that I won't need to speak High Gothic. I just need an icebreaker, if you will.
I won't mince words with you, Romulus. I am out of my depth here. But if you're in need of specialist knowledge, I may advise.
Not to be cruel, but Utopic should probably remain quiet.
I'm not much for these kinds of parties. The ones that I attend to are much more rowdy sorts.
I see.
As you can hear, I've got my softest voice.
They consistently break furniture. I hear of it commonly.
Well, if you so wish, then Deca, we can go together, and Varana can accompany Utopix and Paladorius, acting as translator for them.
This is going to be interesting.
Aye, so I put my arm almost around Romulus's shoulder, and I almost conspiratorially say, well, I see Admiral Gwendolyn up there. Now, for obvious reasons, we want to get in tight with him, because he owns the fragment of the map that we want to get our hands on. I also see Baroness von Blackvine. Aye, Baroness Blackvine over there. She owns a air yacht that we want to get our hands on. I know this all sounds very strange if you don't understand the backstory. Top and bottom of it is, I need your help to achieve this. It looks like the captain's already got Vanderkamp under his thumb, but we may have to talk to him again later.
Oh, goodness sake. May the God Emperor save me from such a fate, but...
No, you'll be fine. Right, so, my thinking is that you and me go over to Miss Blackvine, and you introduce yourself, and then me, and then I say, pardon me for addressing you in Low Gothic, but unfortunately, I'm not. Oh. How would you phrase it?
Local. Or
That is
we'll
a bit
say
more charming.
accustomed to the culture here, but
Not accustomed to the.
but I would recommend approaching Admiral Gwendolyn first.
You want to go for the head guy first?
Of course.
A bold move.
Well, it is the most important move, and if we're going to be trying to make a deal, it would be more important to get that sorted with.
Hey, Palladorus, you're a Navy type, aren't you? Maybe your history will impress the old fella.
Palladorus walks up near to Decker and is like, I've never been in the Navy, but I've done some missions with the captain, if you forget our little first meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yes, we're going for that one.
I used to serve on an Imperial spaceport.
Yeah, but you are also quite obviously you don't put people at ease. Sorry.
Trust me, I already know that.
Right. Okay.
Off to a good start. 5 out of 10, and so far you've managed to insult the thinker in the room.
My thinking was that we go after
Not much
Bugfun
else.
and get a bit of ease ourselves into the conversation, you see, so we can ride the wave with the others.
My way of thinking, and the maxim typically is, you deal with the bigger targets first, and then what you've got remaining, you can then spend on the smaller targets.
Are you using battlefield tactics to this party? I approve.
Whatever it is, I like it. All right,
Yes.
with me.
So, as you arrange to depart for your various conversations, you obviously know there's also a multitude of other less important but still very important individuals about the place, who I will make sure to remind you can also approach them to glean information about your priority targets from, if you've got a savvy enough tongue. But the conversation between the Lord Captain and Baron Vanderkamp doesn't seem to be going quite as well as you'd hope. As you overhear, I haven't seen that pelt before. What is it? I feel like I recognize it from somewhere. Ah, yes. Apologies, Baron, but it's one of my favorite pieces. It's an old family heirloom. It's a fur cat from Fear, hunted by an old matriarch of the family. I normally reserve it for the finest of events. So why haven't you been wearing it to my parties? Well, Baron Vanderkamp, and I imagine you'll probably take your leave then. But...
Yep.
Oh man, yeah, let's leave him to go
Vacate the blast zone.
Verona, maybe we shall see thee spread.
Of course. Of course.
Oh dear.
So we.
Did you just say get this bread? Did I miss that?
Oh boy, they've got canned bread here.
The fucking text piece just go, let's get this bread.
There's canned bread.
Like a fucking YouTube vlogger.
It's a miracle technology that has been lost for centuries.
I know you're toasters and everything, but Jesus.
I said, let's see the spread.
That's what he said.
See the spread. You're going to the food side. Okay.
I mean, I guess it would have still worked, but it wouldn't have sounded as nice I'm gonna try to not stand
So-
inside this servant.
So if you want, I can give you the full spread as you head up the table. You also, someone else seems to be inspecting the table. A man who is dressed in military garb. Though it looks like it's military garb with the appropriate finery of richness, as this gentleman is wearing where he would normally wear but his khakis. There is cloth of gold. His carapace and flak armor is replaced with silver-plated finery, and his cloak, well, his greatcoat, is replaced with a swishing purple robe styled with brassy buttons. He's quite short of stature, doesn't have a beard or anything, quite a smooth and babyish face, and seems to be regarding the food on offer quite excitedly, as a number of servants stand at the ready to serve whatever is necessary from the literal banquet on offer, as well as from the arrangement of bottles at the end. One of the tables, specifically the one that you've approached, Varana and Utobix, is the dessert table. And you do get a glance from one of the servants as you seem to be going, well, you seem to have made a beeline for the dessert table rather than the main.
God damn it. Shall we maybe start at the Shall we maybe start at the beginning?
Good idea. You first.
So you round around the gentleman in armor, and you overhear him lean into one of the servants. Excuse me, what is this? Looks like the commander here has a bit of a nasty lisp. But as you round around to the table, you find quite the display of finely cooked food, and some you don't even seem to recognize. You see what appear to be these a plate filled with, at the very start of the table, a circular plate filled with, just on the softest of gold leaf, a solid blue orb. It's of the same cerulean blue as the sea, but a strangely deepened, darkening one that goes right to a black at the base of it. It is very clearly raw material, whatever it is, and it's about the size of a ping pong ball each. A number of them have already been taken, but it seems like they've been replaced just as quickly. They don't have any labels here. You're generally expected to know what's on offer, but you can inquire of the servants if you want to know what's available. But looking around the table, there also seems to be a series of what appears to be white cubes that have been stained from the bottom up with a beautiful crimson. That, again, just like the cubes, seems to darken and deepen towards the bottom of them, though they sit in little pools of their own crimson, with a slightly translucent texture to them, where the liquid seems to swirl around inside of them, like they're absorbing from like what appears to be wine from the plate underneath. You see what appears to be in all honesty, I'm just going to describe this outright. It looks like mozzarella sticks on one of the tables, as well as some strips of meat served on some generally thin leafy greens, some kind of straight strands, and some strange, again, what seems to be a common theme for this planet, blue, streaks of what appear to be a grass-like complexion. On top of that lay strips of uncooked meat, a tartare, as you can tell, which seems to have a source not far by, sources available, as well as a number of small fish-like creatures. These piscine-looking beasts are quite white and light in complexion, very pure and white, although it appears they are beautiful crimson inside, as one of them partially cut open, bearing crimson interior on white skin, which are drizzled with oil. And finally you see what appears to be another, this time it's more of a purpley colour, but it's still a very deep and obviously blue shade, so it's obviously local delicacy. What appears to be crab's legs.
Here's an excellent question.
Mm-hmm.
I have a respirator unit. I'd imagine that is a cybernetic implant, correct?
Yes, it is.
How do I obtain and input nutrients at this stage?
Tech priests of your caliber typically don't. They more often than not rely on electroinduction and, in emergencies out in the field, solar charging and solar harvesting for energy stocks.
So my calories, so to speak, are purely electrical.
Yeah, but you can supplement it with food. It just doesn't function quite as well for you, and a lot of the system isn't like you typically only ingest sustenance through pastes and things, but you do have the capacity to eat. Your respirator unit is not and can be removed to expose what is your mouth, as mutilated as your mouth is. If that makes sense.
So the partygoers are likely going to have to roll a fear test.
Yeah, the tech priest mandibles.
I was hoping
At least that's
maybe
the way I envision it. It's as to how your character specifically got his cybernetics upgrade. He might not be able to eat at all, or he might have only a small respiration unit in his lungs, which means that he can filter air appropriately and live without air if necessary. It might just be a windpipe attachment, which he can still eat with.
Is that I've always envisioned him with the facial piece, but I'm wondering now if, because he hasn't gotten a huge amount of cybernetic upgrades, relatively speaking, like if he doesn't have some secondary means of the extra supplements for stuff beyond just pure calories, like essentially a tube to shove stuff in and it gets processed into set of paste. Then
you will have something of an ink then.
Okay.
That you can eat through. Eat in inverted commas.
Yeah. Now the question is, there's no tasting in that regard. It's just mute.
Yeah, well, you will get the taste of the food, but you get the baby food form.
I get taste, I don't get texture. Oh, texture.
Yeah, you'll get macerated food.
Okay.
As you insert it into your micro blender that you have for a nose.
Okay. Well, anyway, I suppose I'll lean over to one of the servants and just ask, which of these in particular is known for its flavor above, say, texture or other factors?
The servant kind of balks as the text priest leans toward him. But the gentleman perks up and says, he speaks in High Gothic initially, so Varana, you'll probably have to translate unless you want to tell him outright to speak in Low Gothic. Actually, sorry, Utobix, you've spoken Low Gothic to him, so he will speak back to you in Low Gothic. My apologies. I'm sorry, I don't know the nomenclature for your order. But, sir, our prime recommendation is to begin today's feast with one of our blue capes, and he gestures to the small orbs that look like the small ping-pong ball-sized blue orbs. Blue capes are a local delicacy which are extracted from deep-sea cages of coral. They are said to completely cleanse the palate of all prior flavors and are a unique enhancer for all future feasts by directly stimulating much of the sensory organs through a release of a slight secretion. And he smiles as brightly as he can while slightly being bent backwards away from the tech beast.
Okay, with that in mind, I'll nod to him as I pull back, and I'll pick up one of these orbs, and I'll essentially put up to my face, but then I'll insert to what's almost like the lower side of my jawbone, and then there's just a really faint, like, whirring/grinding noise, and then a deep...
So as it was described, it
I'm
is
just gonna-
a very strange palate cleanser. Like your mouth feels your tongue, I guess, feels numb after it passes through your maceration system. But afterwards, it becomes very strange because you can taste the metal in your mouth, something you've never noticed prior to this. You can physically taste the very, very coppery flavor of the metal.
Very interesting. Reminds me of home.
Where I was known for licking pipes. Stygian hates prime pipe lipper, they called me.
Oh dear.
Were innuendos intended by that? To this day, I don't know.
Alright, I'm gonna try one of the pearls as well.
Again, like I described, the pearl is... Think of jelly.
Uh-huh.
It's like jelly in a skin. And after you bite into it, you also get the numb sensation. But then after that, you can taste your own mouth. And you can when you lick... This is going to sound very strange, but when you lick someone and they have their own taste. Like, you can taste yourself for the first time in your life. Yes, I know how that sounds. Take it for what you will.
That's unsettling.
I didn't realize.
I'm trying to describe tasting your own mouth. What am I supposed to say?
I taste delicious.
Oh God!
What a strange form of self-reflection. What do I taste like?
So,
Yes, carry on. We'll come back to the boys at the tasting table in a moment.
oh Christ, that's gross.
Okay.
Right.
What do you think I do?
So, Romulus, are you sure you want to go straight after the Admiral, or shall we?
We'll do some reconnaissance, speak to some of the other guests, see what he might be looking for, or what he
Some
may...
socializing. I don't suppose you've spoken to any of these characters before we arrived.
Only the Baron, unfortunately.
Poor you. Right. Well, I see a couple of captains over there.
Yep. Well, how 8 men hanging themselves on one rope in one go is of any interest. Hopefully we'll find something out that might be relevant.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to lead the way, or shall I?
Let's go forth. I believe maybe the 2 captains up north might have an idea. Although, there might be competition.
Yes, I was thinking that, but, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
If you want to inspect them, for physical clues, I can tell you what they look like.
Please do.
All right.
Okay, so the man who is currently depicted in black is also wearing black himself. Let me just find him. Here we go. He seems to be smartly dressed and wearing sashes. Like a great red sash across his shoulder. He strangely has marks as if he's mourning in the form of a thin black rag that's draped over one of his shoulders along with the sash. A feature that is common, at least amongst the upper classes here and around this system, is to, rather than going for the full black with your clothing, although he is wearing black, you will wear just a small piece of black to mark yourself in mourning of something, though it seems partially crumpled and pushed under his collar for some reason, which you can't quite understand. He's wearing a tricorned hat and seems to be bearing a number of quite vicious-looking scars. He's young, though. Maybe as old as Decker. which is young by Imperial standards, of course. In turn, the man facing him is very old. He's bald, save for a patch of hair on the back of his head, which has been formed into a neat ponytail, with a great big beard that's been very sharply trimmed around his face. He is dressed in naval garb. Though it isn't well kempt, it is, it's well kempt in the sense of it's worn but well maintained. Clearly, this isn't the first time he's been wearing this naval gear, and it's clear that he hasn't taken special if it's good enough for in front of his men, it's good enough for him in this situation, it seems. And he is noticeably bearing a very obvious cybernetic replacement for one of his legs. As it quite literally, his trouser leg comes up to his just above his knee before it is tucked neatly in around a gold trimming on a large cybernetic actuator. And he himself bears a number of sharp scars.
I always appreciate a man who wears his biological improvements on the outside. Anyway, by the look of these naval folk, they might know a thing or two about the admiral up there.
Indeed. Shall we go and speak to them?
Aye, why not? Let's be bold.
Palador just behind them, just keeping,
You just teleport.
looking around.
So both of you noticeably pass by a glass statue. Well, not a glass statue, a glass dome enclosing what appears to be a gargoyle. A grotesque of sorts, which you don't recognize its origin, and it looks... Well, it's a weird thing to have on display, a ugly, carved grotesque. It's confusing, to say the least. One of the men, the older man, spots you. Man who's been leaning against the pillar also seems to rise up as the pair of you approach. Leaning off and noticing you coming back round both sides of him, do you want to give me an awareness check, the both of you?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Any modifier?
I'm going to give this one a +0, actually. It's going to be challenging.
And not for me, even though I'm with him.
Oof. Yes, you can. Sorry, Paladorius.
Yeah, okay.
That's close.
Awareness is not my forte.
No, it isn't.
To be fair, nothing's our
Ow,
forte just
there.
yet.
Wow, we've had some good rolls there. Unfortunately, none of you notice anything out of the ordinary. But anyway, you step up on either side of the captains, and the pair of them regard you quite strangely, waiting for an obvious introduction as you mingle your way over.
Did they suddenly stop talking as we approach?
Yes.
Yeah.
They like, it's the fact you both came in on either sides of them. They're a bit like, okay.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the opportunity to introduce myself. So, greetings. I am Celarius von Romulus, and this is my friend Decker. And over there is another friend of ours, Paladorius.
Sorry to sneak up on you like this. I'm High Factorum Decker Armstrong, and this is the helmsman of the great ship Mallum Melodium. We're just socializing, you see. I hope we didn't interrupt anything.
Grunts the old man. So you're the Celarius, eh? Head of House Celarius? Is this what passes for a rogue trader these days? I remember when you used to cut a good figure. Oh, what was that? Someday? Oh, you're the heir. Well, you look like it. Whelp. Yeah. Is that... Is he speaking in Low Gothic? Remember the days when you used to get thrown out of a party? It's nice to see you. I'll come over and chat in a moment, Celarius. But I think I'm going to need a drink before I have any chatter. You can handle them, Caligula. And the old man hobbles off as the other gentleman looks towards the pair of you, well, the three of you, sorry, surrounding him, and says, hello, High Factorum, and Romulus, was it?
Yes, Romulus.
And Palladorius, I take it.
I move to be in front of him and easy to see.
Sorry,
To try and put
Palladorius
him at
does
ease a bit
move
more.
you up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Aye. Sorry to sneak up on you like that.
well, that's how things go, isn't it? Get the drop on someone. So, are you planning on assassinating me, or are you just
No.
going to murder me with conversation?
The latter, unfortunately. Although then again, it could be worse there. You could be stuck with Baron over there.
I've met him once before. Almost got thrown in his pit back in the day.
He does enjoy his tales of slaughter and other such ghastly things.
I know, it's marvellous fun, isn't it?
It's a bit tedious coming from him, frankly.
Much better to be speaking from direct experience rather than simply watching the grim proceedings.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to talk about someone's eyes being spooned out, you better have spooned their eyes out yourself, you know?
I can tell you're a man of adventure. I haven't met you yet, though.
Captain Caligula Gorlius. He extends his hand to you, and then obviously to the shake.
Yep,
I shake his hands.
Captain of the Reclamation, Cobra class. The
Fantastic ships.
lesser. No problem. I do like a little bit of flattery here and there. Especially when I'm about to announce that I'm the Gorlius's. My brother's up there cavorting with the Admiral.
And have they been having any luck?
What do I care? It's not like he's going to share. Like I said. Brothers. And we hold a warrant. Or at least our father did. Until the old man keeled over out of shock of all things. Patriarch of a long lineage, and what kills him? Shock. I suppose he had good reason.
What was it that shocked him?
You boys know of the Mjol disaster?
Unfortunately, yes.
He settled those worlds.
Oh, goodness me.
Aye.
Sorry to hear of it.
Oh, it's no great problem. Means the warrant finally gets into some sitting to cushion his ass while he was lounging in the palace. Sorry. Family troubles. You can imagine these kind of transitions aren't too easy. After all, it's not like I'm going to get the warrant. Reaver and Raider, they call me. All a man does is hunt for pirates in wild space. It's not my problem some trade ships are so armed to the teeth they look like reavers.
I understand the problems implicitly. I don't know if this will go against me or not, but I'm a bit of a failed pirate myself.
Oh, yes?
It's a funny story, really. It was only for 5 days. It's how I met my captain, coincidentally.
So, we like to dabble in the criminal life a little ourselves, do we?
Well, it was a long time ago.
Oh, come now. If you really want, I'll have one of the servants bring over so you can get out.
Let's say the underworld is sometimes more interesting than the overworld.
Tell me about it. I imagine you don't care much for it, though. You're in my kind of shoes, aren't you, lad? Heir of a lineage.
Yes. And yet I've got plenty to learn, having never commanded a ship myself.
Trust me, it's easier than you'd think. If my fat old father could do it, then I imagine you certainly. And what's that? You were Master Helmsman. What was your ship? Solarius ship's an old thing, I remember that much.
I do believe you are muted.
Speak up, Paladorius.
Sorry. Yes, a great old ship that is. And I can't trying to remember what the class
It's
was.
a
The Conqueror?
Star Galleon.
Conquest class Star Galleon, yeah.
A Star Quest.
No.
Conquest class Star down.
Conquest class Star Galleon.
For the life of me.
The hash ringing, the slash singing, the hash slinging,
Star Quest giving.
the Star Quest Galleon, the Far Breast Galleon, the Armrest Galleon.
Now free to play.
Alien class.
The Star Quest. Now free to play.
Conquest class Star Galleon. Galleon, a great old big ship.
By the Emperor's golden balls, that thing must be old. Star Galleon. They're Dark Age, aren't they?
Yes, it's very old and still runs to this day. He might have little dings and been through a lot of rough patches, but we all know how rough space travel can be, as he basically traces a little end of his scar on his face.
Must handle like shite.
That's one way of putting it, my lord. It's nothing compared to a Cobra class frigate.
Oh,
Is it a frigate?
It's a destroyer, Cobra class.
Destroyer.
Navy still isn't too happy about the fact I fixed it up after the whole port sword thing. But what are they using it for? It's just rotting in atmosphere there. So I gave her a new coat of paint, gave her a new name, Reclamation. I think it's quite fitting. And, God, it's a vicious little whippet. Torpedoes. Anything bigger than us ought to fear it.
Ah, she's a Mark II, is it, that came with torpedoes?
No, she was an original frigate. We just made some... Oh.
Would you know?
Father never saw
Well,
the
of course
phones
you know
leave.
her original name. May I ask?
Yeah. She was the Saint Marie. Don't know which saint that is, personally. Never cared to learn. Save that stuff for the Schola Progenium.
Indeed. There's a saint for everybody.
And then some.
Aye, so... Are you enjoying the party so far, or are you just tolerating it while your brother does business?
Tolerating it. I'm practically here for no reason. I'm never going to get that bloody thing. Not by reasonable means, at least. What can I offer? I got a ship I'd lifted off some corpses hanging around Port Sword. The Golden Boy up there, he's going to get all the great lineage, what's left of it that hasn't been ripped apart and all.
Well, from my first impressions of you, you seem to have the will to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's very important, isn't it, Captain?
Oh, I'm determined to get it. Just... I'll figure something out, I'm sure. Who knows? Might already have a plan.
Well, bear in mind the Lord Captain Solarius, if you should ever need an ally.
I imagine you're not just chatting. Something you gentlemen are wanting?
Well, it's probably pretty obvious, but we're here hoping to get our hands on the fragment too.
You don't say, do you? Well, I don't want to sound too confident in myself, but if I do go through with my plan, pretty sure I'll get it, so I'll perhaps humor you on behalf of attempting.
Well, we do have a particular plan in mind for if we get it. Perhaps perhaps we might be able to make something out of this together.
I'm imagining I'm gonna want a interaction check from you here.
Sure.
So, how are you going to approach it? Are you going to use any of your skills to help with this? Just to.
Well, yeah. I have Peer Underworld. Would you reckon I could use that?
You could use that with Caligula.
Things.
Yes, Caligula will accept those kind of. Yeah,
Excellent.
you can use common law Underworld as well if you try and weigh some of your knowledge in this, like regarding the Beast House. For a better chance on, what social skill are you going to use? Charm? Barter?
Probably... Well, it's 6 and 2 threes, really. But I'd like to think I'm being charming.
Yeah, I'd say charm would make sense for this.
Okay. Any modifiers?
So what are you going to do with your common law? How are you going to approach it? Yeah, because that's the first step.
Alright, so I'll do a common law first, which isn't a fellowship test, so I don't get an automatic plus 10.
Yeah.
So I'll say we have a particular deal in mind with the Beast House. You'll have heard of them. And then I'll do my common law.
Yeah.
See if that helps.
It doesn't help, but that's not enough failure or success to really affect it, so then it's just going to be a plus 20 on your charm check.
And that's including Peer.
And that's including Peer, yes.
Cool. Oh, I'm going to fate point that. That's just ridiculous.
Oh, that is bad.
Yeah.
I'm wheeling dealing here. And oh my Christ.
Oh, jeez. Good God.
That's what I
That's the first natural 100 here.
Yeah, that's a good start.
On fan-launched 40k.
You know what? Get out of the way now before the bullets start flying.
So Caligula narrows his gaze at you and says, I wouldn't mess with the Beast House, lad.
Well,
and he leans in a little bit closer. Out. Ordo Xenos has been poking their nose into it past few years. I reckon a purge is coming. That's why I've kept my hands off them. As fun as it might be to lift the trades, I'll say I've sacked a few of their own transport ships myself. This is not worth trifling with.
Well,
he taps his nose and backs out of the conversation shortly afterwards.
Could I attempt to intervene?
With a natural 100, no. There's no salvaging the conversation.
Okay.
You've essentially let on getting involved with something that he thinks is certain death because it involves the Inquisition. So he's like, nope. It's like you're having a conversation party and someone's like, hey, do you want to try and jump to roof? It'll pretty much kill the conversation if you don't think it's a good idea. So Caligula backs off and meanders away to mingle elsewhere as that conversation comes to an end and the Lord Captain himself begins shifting around where he's having conversations. So Caligula's going to move off to speak to... he's going to move over here to speak to the Colonel. Yeah, he's danced across the table.
Away from the back.
Overhear what they say.
But Populus is approaching to all of you. Populus is on his way over as he has finally plied himself with some drink. But in advance of the arrival of naval unit cluster, and as Varana and Utobix are currently picking themselves away at the dinner table, I think we're going to take our leave for the evening.